Good morning, everybody. You ready to go? Because here we go. There you go. There's your song for the morning, and it's up to you to guess the name of that song. Hang on. Let me put my horn away. And as I announced the last time we played a song that you had to guess, the winner will get $100 million. Nobody believes me. Of course, I'm lying. What the hell, you know? Okay, so let me announce this. The girl, maybe a guy, because Haney, that could be a guy or a girl. Haney Sinkoff guessed correctly the last song I played that you had to guess, and it was Hava Nagila. And that was written by Abraham Idelson or Adelson. And he wrote it in about 1915. And I'm telling you, I must have played that song 1,000 times because whenever there's a celebration, whether it's a wedding, a bar mitzvah, or any type of gathering, people love to get up and dance to that. That's Hava Nagila. So that was last week's winner. And on this song that I just played for you, if you want to guess, I'll give you a tip how you're going to hear this in full. I just played a small version of it. It is the song that they played in the Godfather movie at the wedding. So go to that scene and listen to it. You hear the whole thing, and then you just go on the internet, and of course you can find the name of it. It's one of these good time songs. So where do you go on the internet or on TV? And you're going to listen to an interview, and the host comes on, plays a beautiful instrument. By the way, I love that horn. That's the one I got for my birthday. Plays a horn and plays a song that has sentimental value or classical value, and just to start to show off. The song has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. Where do you go? I'll tell you where you go. You go right here, and this is Life After Scientology. I'm your host and cornet player, Ron Miscavige. And I have a very special guest on this morning, and we're going to discuss something that just happened about a week ago. And this is one of these almost unbelievable situations that took place. But my guest was there in the courtroom as it went down. So you're getting the skinny right from somebody who witnessed it. And I don't know how to I don't know how to introduce him, except he's one of the sharpest people I've ever met in my life. As an investigative reporter, you're not going to get better. And in addition to that, he's a great guy. Please welcome Jeffrey Augustine. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Yeah, good morning, Ron, and happy Sunday from the Scientology Money Project News Desk here in Los Angeles. Ron, we have to start by observing something special.
Go ahead.
First time in something like 900 years, it's a palindromic day. 02/02/2020. The date today, February 2nd, 2020, reads the same backwards and forwards.
Really?
First time we've had that in 900 some years. It won't happen again for a long time.
Wow. Wait.
Yeah.
Say this again now. Exactly. It's
the numbers. The numbers read backwards and forwards the same way. It's a palindromic date, which is exceedingly rare.
Yeah, it's 02.
02/2020. So you can do it backwards or forwards.
Wow. There you go.
Now,
Well, look, where the hell are you going to go and get information like this? This is valuable. You never know when somebody's walking down the street and say, "Hey, what was the significance of today?" I love
it's
it.
the only day like it that's going to happen in 900 years.
I know. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to get into this, and I will tell you, man, this, I was reading Tony Ortega the day it happened. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, this has got to be a joke. This has got to be a Monty Python adventure here. But let me start off because I have some written questions for you. Okay, Jeffrey?
Okay.
And here's number one. What were the issues involved in Valery Haney's courtroom this past week? And if we
Okay.
could get into
Yeah,
that with the
we're gonna break that down.
Okay, good.
So I want to start by explaining to your listeners. Basically, the issue at hand is that Valery signed some contracts.
Right.
And we've been over this before on your show, Ron. When you enter Scientology, it's you sign a lot of contracts. One of them is you agree not to sue the church. You agree to go into binding religious arbitration.
Right.
But I want to break this down. First of all, when we say the Church of Scientology, what do we mean? First of all, there's not a single entity known as the Church of Scientology. That is a term of convenience that refers to a hierarchy of churches that comprise what they call the Church of Scientology. So I want to tell your listeners how the Church of Scientology is made, and so they can understand where Valery Haney's case fits into it and where Scientologists fit into the scheme of things. Now I'm going to use some handwritten diagrams because we do not have a $100 million YouTube station called Scientology TV. I was with a Spanish film crew 2 weeks ago here in LA, and we were shooting at the complex in LA, Big Blue. And I said, hey, let me take you over to Scientology TV so you can see the world's most expensive YouTube channel. Nobody watches it. It's called Scientology TV. Okay, we don't have that $100 million thing. We have
right.
The internet. So I have this chart. It's really important, and I want listeners to pay attention because this is really good. This is how you can understand the Church of Scientology, and this is what I studied when I began my Scientology Money project. Basically, now can you see this, Ron?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Hold
Okay.
it up a little bit more to your left. There you go. There you go.
Okay. Now, CST on top, that is the Church of Spiritual Technology. They're the people who build the vaults, the nuclear-proof vaults where L. Ron Hubbard's technology is stored.
Right.
Under that is Religious Technology Center. Now, the Religious Technology Center is David Miscavige is chairman of the board. The Religious Technology Center owns all the intellectual property of Scientology. So they own it. And what they do in turn, when you talk at Church of Scientology, you're going to talk about CSI, which is the Church of Scientology International.
Right.
Now that's called the mother church. CSI, Church of Scientology International, does not deliver auditing. It's an administrative church only. So it's licensed by the Religious Technology Center. Okay. So RTC licenses CSI.
Right.
CSI in turn licenses all of the other churches of Scientology. So Flagland Base, Church of Scientology Los Angeles, Church of Scientology New York, Church of Scientology Dallas, they're all licensees of CSI. And then you have the Scientology secular groups like Narconon, Able, Wise, right? They're licensed. So everything is licensed from the Religious Technology Center.
Right.
And really, it's a franchise system. That's what Scientology is. So licenses go down, and then money in the form of royalties go back up. So Narconon is licensed, and then they pay money up to Church of Scientology International. The Church of Flagland Base pays money to CSI, who in turn pays money to RTC, and CST gets some of the money.
Right.
So that's what I want you to understand. So when the church talks about hierarchy, that's how it works. But RTC, for all intents and purposes, controls the entire Scientology structure, and it's controlled by one man, and that's David Miscavige. Okay, so when Valery joined the Sea Org and she became a Scientologist, she signed a series of contracts. And we've been over this on your show before. You sign 4 basic contracts when you enter, but the upshot for Valery's case is you agree not to sue the church ever. You agree to go into binding religious arbitration. And this is the religious services enrollment contract.
Yeah.
Now, Because Valery's a Sea Org member, she signed a contract with the Religious Technology Center and worked for David Miscavige. That's why she named him in her lawsuit.
Right.
Because she was a member of the Religious Technology Center. So, we got another piece of paper here. This is the Sea Org membership contract, the billion-year contract.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. It's a pledge. By analogy, when a Christian accepts Jesus into their heart, that has no legal standing, right?
Right.
You can't go into a bank and say, have accepted Jesus and I want to open a bank account. There's no legal, it's a pledge. So that's all the Sea Organization is.
Right.
It's a pledge. And this becomes important because the Sea Org has no legal existence. And so I'm going to show your listeners.
Well, wait, Jeffrey,
yeah,
before you go on,
yeah.
From what I'm getting so far, this is all smoke and mirrors right from the get-go.
Yeah, and it gets worse.
I mean,
this
is like you're going in a room where there's nothing, and you're pledging your allegiance to nothing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But I'll tell you why it's nothing.
Okay, go on. Yeah.
Okay, now the Sea Organization, when we split the church, the easiest way to understand Scientology is it has three parts. The International Association of Scientologists.
Right.
That's an unincorporated membership organization. It's like if we liked playing trumpets and we got together on Sunday and played trumpets, we don't have any legal form of existence. We're just some people who like to play trumpets, right?
Right.
But we don't have a bank account. We don't have anything. So if we wanted to have a bank account, we would need an operating arm. So the operating arm of the IAS is the International Association of Scientology Administrations, the IASA, and that's staffed by Sea Org members.
Right.
Okay. So you have to belong to the IAS to be a Scientologist. That's the official membership organization. And you have to be in good standing with the Church of Scientology International, which cannot have any members because it's a non-membership corporation. Now, the Sea Org itself doesn't exist. And I'm going to read you why. In 2012, around there, Monique Rathbun sued the Church of Scientology International at Religious Technology Center, David Miscavige. Remember that case?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So in that case in Texas, and I went to New Braunfels, Texas to watch the court, saw all 22 Scientology lawyers. And
wait, they had 22 lawyers there?
Yes, they did. In fact, they had so many lawyers, they put there were a lot of defendants named, and they put the David Miscavige's lawyers and Maura McShane, they were up front, but they had lawyers in the jury box. There were 12 lawyers there in the cheap seats for the lesser defendants. Now, that was a record for lawyers until the NXIVM case, as far as cults go. The NXIVM case had 29 lawyers.
Whoa.
But anyway, I'm digressing. The goal of the Rathbun lawsuit was to depose David Miscavige.
Right.
And that is absolutely the last thing on earth that man wants to have happen. He does not want to go into deposition. That would be the most dangerous place in the world for him.
Right.
So if you were auditing David Miscavige and you asked where is safe, he would say in hiding. If you said where is dangerous, he would say in deposition.
Yeah.
I think I'm safe in saying that.
No, that's a good analogy. That is very true.
I'm not his spokesman, but I got on good authority from Ken Delusion, who apparently works for the church. Okay, now, David Miscavige's high-power lawyer said that the Sea Org didn't exist. And I want to read this, and we're going to be in classroom. This is really worth listening to, and it's on my blog, and I'll send you the show links, and I'll post it today on my Money Project, okay?
All right, yeah.
This is what Mr. Jefferson, David Miscavige's lawyer, said about the Sea Org. Quote, plaintiff, that's Monique Rathbun, quote, plaintiff asserts that Mr. Miscavige exercised control because he leads the Sea Organization, a religious order within Scientology. But the Sea Org is not a corporate entity. It has no physical or legal existence. It is not incorporated or established pursuant to legal formalities. It has no constitution, charter, or bylaws, and no formal or informal ecclesiastical, corporate, or other management structure. It has no directors, officers, managing agents, or other executives, no employees, staff members, or volunteers, no income, no disbursements, no bank accounts or other assets, no liabilities, no stationery, no office, home, address, or telephone number. It does not create or maintain any financial personnel or other records. It can neither give nor receive orders because it has no one to either give or receive orders or to carry them out. It cannot sue or be sued. So David Miscavige's lawyer said the Sea Org doesn't exist. It has no members, Ron.
Well,
it has no members.
What was I in for 26 and a half years?
Well, what happens when you join the Sea Org, you sign a pledge.
Yeah, that's right. I did sign that.
And it's worth exactly nothing when you go to say you want to depose David Miscavige. It doesn't exist.
Huh.
It's a pledge. It's like saying, I think I'll go out for a cup of coffee.
So
which has more standing legally because that's something you naturally do.
This is all legal chicanery to avoid everything.
Well, what's interesting. Now, here's what's interesting. Going back to my diagram, they want to put Valery Haney into arbitration, right?
Yeah.
So the Sea Organization, when you join the Sea Org, you sign the pledge, you sign a contract with an entity within the Church of Scientology. So you join the Sea Org, you will sign a contract as a staff member with one of the Scientology churches,
right?
CSI, RTC, CST. You'll sign a staff member contract. So effectively, when you take the pledge, you become a staff member of one of these bodies, right?
Yeah.
But you still belong to a non-existent entity. It doesn't have any members. So this gets into what the court in '89 called the deceptive business. It's to fool the eye. Okay, so the Sea Org is going to conduct the arbitration. Sea Org members are going to conduct this arbitration, but they have to belong to the IAS, which is unincorporated. Members of a non-existent entity are going to go into a building owned by CSI and conduct an arbitration. The International Justice Chief will be a Sea Org member, but that doesn't mean anything because he's actually part of CSI. So it gets very convoluted. Now, when David Miscavige did not want to be deposed, the Sea Org didn't mean anything, and his rank as captain meant nothing. When I was in court listening to the hearing for Valery Haney, Scientology's attorneys kept repeating over and over that she was a Sea Org member, she was a Sea Org member, she was a Sea Org member. So when they want to assert a contract and put Valery into arbitration, the Sea Org absolutely exists.
Yeah.
When a plaintiff wants to depose David Miscavige, what the hell are you talking about? The Sea Org has no members, doesn't exist. It doesn't have an address. It doesn't have a phone number. So, Ron, if I wanted to write the Sea Org a letter, I couldn't because it has no members. It'd be like mailing a letter to air. How do you mail a letter to something that doesn't exist? Air is more addressable. So that's part of what I think should come out in this arbitration is the pieces need to be understood. And Ron, what's interesting, these religious contracts, as we saw, are enforceable. So that's the pivot of the matter is you can't sue us, you have to go to arbitration. And that's what the judge ordered.
But that judge, he didn't take into account anything other than he saw a piece of paper the girl signed and said, oh, okay, you got to go to a religious arbitration. So he was treating it like a traffic ticket or something.
In my opinion, he didn't I think he punted. First of all, Judge Berks is he didn't become a judge until he was 64. He was appointed in 2014 by former Governor Brown of California to the Los Angeles Superior Court. So at an age when most lawyers are looking to retire, he becomes a judge. He'd been the president of the LA Bar Association. He worked for a big law firm, but he's only been on the bench 6 years. I've done a lot of Scientology court watching, and he's no Judge Michael Pastor. I'll tell you that. He's like a traffic cop. A lot of First Amendment issues that involve religion. He didn't look at duress, Valery signing contracts underage, coercion, undue influence. When Valery was signing the contract, there was a man with a gun in the room. It should be very intimidating, Ron.
She what now?
For anybody. If I'm making you sign contracts and there's a man with a gun in the room, security, that has an inherently coercive effect, a deadly weapon. And the judge said, well, the man with the gun didn't make you do anything. To me, like he didn't put it to your head and make you sign. And I thought, that's not a good judge.
Oh, boy.
Because the fact of a deadly weapon in the presence of contract signing has an intimidating effect.
Of course it does. And if somebody come in a room with a gun on their hip, that's not the same thing as somebody coming in a room without a gun on his hip.
Well, the reason a security guard would carry a sidearm is you have a live round chambered. On a Glock, it doesn't have safety if it's not a 9mm. So you have to assume there's a live round chambered.
Wow.
And you're in a room and you're on video. You're being filmed. It's intimidating. You just want to say or do anything to get the hell out of there.
No kidding.
And I can tell you one time, Ron, a Freedom reporter, Jim Lynch, came to our house several years ago just to harass.
Yeah.
And Jim Lynch died several years ago. He worked for Freedom. But he came out here just to harass. So I followed him out to his car. He had a PI with him, a private investigator driven him. And he got into this rented car, paper plates, right? And the PI had a gun. And I asked the private investigator, why do you need a gun to come out to my house? Why do you need a gun?
Yeah.
I was pissed. Like, I asked him, are you that afraid? Is David Miscavige that afraid that he needs to send someone with a gun out to my house? And I said to the PI, what if I went out to your house where your wife lived with a gun?
Yeah.
And he was pissed. I said, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're coming out to where my wife lives with me, and you have a goddamn gun. And that's what Scientology does. So the judge, I was furious. I think if that judge, if his wife or daughter or niece was in a similar situation, he would be furious. He would do something about it.
Of course. But
he treats it so damn casually that you cannot take him seriously. His credibility, in my mind, was shredded. He is a piss poor judge to not take that kind of factor into account. Yeah, the guy didn't put the gun to Valery's head, but just the mere presence, the intimidation factor, the duress, the coercion, for him to fail to take that into account, I think is part of any appeal.
Oh, okay, but now let me just take a point here. I don't know if we mentioned this. Matter of fact, I know we didn't. Valery escaped by getting in the trunk of a car that was owned by an actor that was doing an acting job down at the Gold Base in Hemet, California, right?
Correct, yeah.
So he drove her to, he went home to L.A. or wherever town he lived in that area, opened up the trunk, and there's Valery. That's how she escaped. Now, she must have gone back in order to sign this contract. Is that true or no?
Yes, from my understanding, they wanted her to come back to route out properly.
Oh, wait. Wait, hang on. Listen.
Yeah.
This fucking route out properly, let me tell you something. If you were in Nazi Germany in the late 30s and you were a Jew and you escaped from Germany and then an SS wrote to you and said, you've got to come back and route out properly. For God's sake, you should not go back. Do I even have to say that? But I can tell you this, and I'll tell you, I got to put my 2 cents in on this. I know the state of mind that a person can be in from being intimidated and indoctrinated for years and years and years. And they think in their mind they kind of owe this. And people say, I can't understand their state of mind. I can. Because when you're that indoctrinated, it's a different state of mind than if you have none of this indoctrination done to you. Do you follow me,
Sure.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, it's like the Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
And
Explain that. Don't just stop there. The Stockholm syndrome. I know what it is, but for our viewers, go on.
well, that's a term that it came about in the 70s, I believe, where there were people taken hostage, for weeks.
Right?
And they began to identify with their captors.
Exactly.
They began to try to please their captors.
Yep.
So because they're in fear for their life. So they begin to become cooperative.
Yeah.
One debatable example of the Stockholm syndrome was the heiress Patty Hearst when she became a member of this. She was kidnapped and then she became a member of the Sudanese Liberation Army, the SLA. Yep. And she took part in a bank robbery. There was a debate at her trial whether she actually could rob a bank or if the Stockholm syndrome affected her. I think it did. Yeah. Because as an heiress, she didn't need to rob a bank. Yeah. She needed to be involved with, violent crime. And so when you're in this state of mind, when you're identifying with captors, you want to do it legally or the right, where they're trying to explain to you why you should do it.
Yeah,
what they really want to do is get you to sign papers that we don't, we want to get out of jail free card. So sign these papers.
And this is, you think back for all the years that she worked there. In her own mind, she thought, well, this is the right thing to do. Maybe I should go back. In other words, it's like the correctness of it is prevalent in a person's mind. They feel they're doing the correct thing, which is nothing could be further from the truth. If you escape from Scientology, just don't go back.
No.
Don't go back.
No, in fact, there's an important case, and I have it on my blog. It's called the Gwynn. There's a famous court case called Gwynn versus Church of Christ, Colliersville, and it's out of Oklahoma. Here's the thing. For any believer, anyone in a church, a faith tradition, temple, mosque, when you join a church, Ron, you're consenting to abide by their ecclesiastical rules.
Right.
But the important thing is the consent belongs to you, the believer.
Right.
Consent belongs to you. And this is why the Church of Scientology wants you to sign legal contracts to give up your consent and you agree to be bound by their rules.
I see.
So what's going on is there's a shift in the balance of power from the individual to the organization. The Scientology wants to strip you of all your legal and civil rights as quickly as possible when you become a member. At every step of the way, you're going to sign a contract agreeing not to sue, agreeing to give your power over to the Church of Scientology. So this idea that Scientology will give you freedom is a lie. They will strip you of your rights and take away your freedom by use of contracts. The idea that Scientology will make you self-determined is a lie. The contracts will determine your future if there's ever a problem.
That's true.
Well, it's a series of lies. Scientology is not what it says it is at all. Valery right now has no freedom, no self-determination because the court said you're bound by these religious contracts. So the church is arguing she gave her consent by signing a contract, even though she didn't understand what the contract was, didn't get copies of the contract. There's no informed consent in Scientology. They don't tell you what the contracts mean. It's always that hustle, used car salespeople. Here, why don't you just sign the paperwork so we can get you started on your auditing? And so Valery, signed these. She gave up her consent to sue the church in court. And that's what the church wants. So now they have her where they want her.
Yeah.
Now, this is far from over. This is very far from over, because I think it can be argued that the Sea Org, which doesn't exist, intends to conduct an arbitration. So I'd raise the question, how could a non-existent entity do anything? I think the Sea Org has to be shown to be the operating arm of the Church of Scientology International and the alter ego of David Miscavige. So that's a different show, right?
On that statement, that would be the ultimate coup, to expose the fact that the Sea Org does exist and David runs it. He runs it on an everyday minute order.
Sure.
I can tell you right now. I've been there. I've been there when you had to get something done. It had to go all the way up to him to get approval to get done. But yeah, but getting back to this, if the Sea Org doesn't exist, that means that you would go in a room with air, and the air would make a judgment on you, right? I mean, yeah, I'd love to see that trick done. I'd love to see that done.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the church forced to admit in court that the Sea Org does actually have a legal existence.
Yeah.
And they're arguing that it's staff members. So that's an interesting case. But going back, when we talk about never go back to the Church of Scientology, a believer is entitled to withdraw their consent, right? Just as they're entitled to give their consent to be governed by a church. Yeah. They're entitled to withdraw it because it belongs to you. So when Scientology is saying, come back and route out properly, what they're doing is what they want to do is keep you under their control. So the way to resign is to write a letter saying, I withdraw my consent to be governed by Scientology's ecclesiastical laws and policies. I am no longer a Scientologist. I'm no longer under your governance. You can withdraw it, and you should write a letter to the Religious Technology Center, the IAS, Church of Scientology International, and the orgs where you've done services. Tell them you don't have my consent. I withdraw it. I'm not your slave anymore. And I would not go back and sign anything at all, because their intention, especially for Sea Org members who are leaving, is to strip you of your rights on the way out. Just like they strip you of your rights on the way in, they want to strip you of your rights on the way out. And an interesting thing, one of the church lawyers, RTC lawyers, said that the contract applies to past, present, and future actions. So they're trying to have this forever release from Sea Org members, in this case Valery, and everybody else, that you can never sue us forever. In fact, some of Scientology's contracts, you agree that your heirs may not sue. So if you die, your heirs may not sue. On one refund contract, if you do get a repayment or a refund, you have to sign a release that releases the church from all liability going back to the beginning of time. And in L. Ron Hubbard's world, the beginning of time was 4 quadrillion years ago. So these contracts have things like that. And in general, the courts cannot interfere with religious governance, right?
Yes, but now we come to the crux of the whole thing. Are they a religion? Because I submit that they're not. That's a
I've never considered Scientology a religion.
Yeah, I mean that would be a different interview, and I don't want to get into it because we're opening up a whole bunch of questions here. But right there is the crux of it.
Well, Ron, it's also the crux. Another issue that's raised is the Catholic Church spent 20 years defending pedophile priests by claiming First Amendment religious protections.
Yep.
And that's very dangerous when you cannot use First Amendment protections to shield criminality, to shield wrongdoing, shield bad faith. And basically, as it now stands in America, the worst thing you could be is a religious worker. The worst thing you could be is in trouble with the church. And when the church fuses arbitration, which is secular contract law, with First Amendment, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And just for people who may not know the term, arbitration is where you voluntarily agree to abandon your right to sue a company in court, and you agree to be bound into arbitration.
Now, let me interject something right there.
Yeah.
If the judge ruled that she would have to submit to arbitration, and the arbitrator was independent of either party, that would at least have some fairness in it.
Yeah, it really would. You know, if you had independent arbitration, a third party, a former judge,
Yeah.
that would certainly introduce fairness. And you make an excellent point in one of Valery's arguments, and I think it's a great argument, is that the arbitrators have to be Scientologists in good standing with the Church of Scientology. So that's inherently a rigged game. It's like going into a rigged casino.
Of course it is.
Because no Scientologist in good standing is going to rule against the church, because they'll be declared a suppressive person.
Jeffrey, let me tell you something. Let's take a step downward to what's called a committee of evidence, which is in that same realm of thought. I was in Scientology for 42 years, and I was in the Sea Organization for 26 and a half. I never saw a COMEV delivered that produced the results of a person being not guilty. If you were COMEV'd, you were guilty. If the COMEV found out you weren't, they would be disbanded, and another one would be put in its place to find you guilty. It was like Torquemada during the Inquisition. If Torquemada sent one of his guys out to question you, you knew you were guilty. There was no goddamn rights. There was no justice. Sure. And that's how it is within Scientology. It's them or them. They're right or they're right. You can't be right. You can't be found innocent of anything.
And that's interesting that you raise a good point. Tony Ortega just showed the Super Bowl commercial that the church is going to air, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And what time does it start? I'm going to have to cut this interview short. Anyway, the Church of Scientology commercial is to discover you, right? That's the basis. Discover who you are.
Yeah.
But in reality, Church of Scientology is all about the group, the organization, the church. Very little to do with you. In fact, this is a good point to their Super Bowl commercial. Who you are in Scientology is you're screwed by contracts, screwed by COMEVs, guilty until proven innocent.
Yep.
And you're going to pay and pay and pay. Maybe with labor like you did for all those years in the Sea Org, or you're going to pay with money, and you're going to keep paying and paying and paying. And I've always said the end phenomenon of the Church of Scientology is nothing left of a person. So there's this reduction of rights, and Valery Haney's case illustrates the dangerousness of Scientology. When push comes to shove, they're going to survive at the cost of people's rights, their freedom, their dignity, and everything else. And if you disobey, they'll disconnect you and take away your family.
Yep.
They engage in these mentally cruel games of takeaway, very sadistic. And so Valery Haney is part of, her case represents everything that's wrong with Scientology, that the individual ultimately has no rights, in fact is nothing, becomes nothing. Ron, it's interesting in the Sea Org, I have something here to illustrate. In the Sea Org, members are called coins, correct?
Exactly.
So there's coins.
A coin.
Here, right?
Yep.
So the dehumanization of Sea Org members is they're called coins. So if I'm a boss in the Sea Org, and I could say, hey, Ron, I've got this coin here. I'll trade it for this coin, right?
Yeah.
Got a treasury person here, but I need a tech person. So let's trade, right?
Yeah.
And then Regs are a dime a dozen. I don't really need those, right? So that's the depersonalization. How the church looks at its members is they are to be exploited, used for the maximum possible gain.
Yep.
CR members are you're to pay them the least amount of money possible. Rice and beans, $10 a week, $50 a week, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
90, 100 hours of work. So you spend the least amount of money possible. And if they get old or sick, you fitness board them, right?
Yep.
And if they sue, you're going to put them into arbitration, which is a rigged game we learned from Luis Garcia's case. So this whole thing, we see it over and over, and this is why no one should ever go near the Church of Scientology. Read the 4 contracts before you go in, know what you're getting into. And I've said it before, but in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, the poet Virgil takes the narrator down into hell.
Yeah.
And there's a sign over the gates of hell: abandon hope, all ye who enter here.
I tell you, that should be put over the gate of every Scientology org.
Yeah. So that's
you.
what went on. I mean, when you're sitting in court, and I've been court watching the Riza Islam trial.
Yeah.
Riza, his mother, and his 2 sisters are accused of basically conning the state of California out of $3.8 million.
Yeah.
Sitting in court watching that, and that's an interesting case. Sitting in court when I watched the 22 lawyers down in Texas, we're sitting in case with Valery. Scientology puts out a lot of glossy magazines that builds ideal orgs. But Ron, the reality of it, from my perspective, is courtrooms, lawyers arguing every reason why Scientology should not be held accountable for its actions.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
L. Ron Hubbard taught that you have to be responsible, right?
That is the bottom line. You're responsible for your condition. That's drummed into you.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the lie about Scientology. They want you to be responsible about everything. You pulled it in.
Yeah.
You did it. You caused it, right?
Yeah.
Through these contracts, the Church of Scientology wants to be responsible for nothing.
Exactly right.
They are a no source case. We're not responsible for anything. In fact, Ron, it extends to when you go into Scientology, you sign a contract. So let's say that you're going up the steps of an Oregon buffalo, right?
Right.
And because of their failure to maintain the property, you slip on the ice and break your knee. Is the church going to pay for that injury?
No.
Nope, because you signed a contract.
Yeah.
You sign a contract for anything. In fact, so the church wants everything. They want all your money, your children, your labor, your life energy, your life force, even down to the bone marrow, but they don't want to be responsible for anything.
No. I'll
So
tell you, Jeffrey.
Is that a condition of out exchange, Ron, according to L. Ron Hubbard?
Of course it is. That's criminal exchange.
Yeah, define that this is an interesting term L. Ron Hubbard used. Could you tell listeners what criminal exchange is?
Well, the top form of exchange would be you give more than what the person thinks they're going to get in exchange for what they gave you. Let's say they ordered a diamond and you give them a blue-white diamond. That would be the highest form and the most desirable form of exchange. Another form of exchange would be you get something for something. In other words, you pay $10 and you get what you thought you were going to get for $10. That would be even exchange. And another one would be a criminal exchange where a person comes up to you and in exchange for not getting shot with the gun he's holding at you, you give him your money. That's criminal exchange. And these are described in the texts and policy letters of the Church.
And L. Ron Hubbard said that the criminal exchange is when a person wants something for nothing.
Yeah.
And yet, what is the church doing here except engaging in criminal exchange? We wanted all those years of labor from Valery Haney, and yet we're stripping of her rights. And she's going to be judged in a kangaroo court of people who are going to be terrified of ruling against the church.
Oh, they wouldn't do it if their life depended on it. They wouldn't do it. They're
So
absolutely going to
yeah, I
find
mean,
her not worthy of any goddamn thing. But look, before we get too further into, because I'd like to get into, what a person should do if they're going to leave, what they shouldn't do. When you went in court, I mean, how long did this procedure take? Like, was it 20 minutes, an hour, 10 minutes, or what?
well, you go in the morning. This is Department 37. Judge Berkshire's motions. Okay,
Yeah.
so Judge is 70 years old. He's slow moving, right? And no crime in growing old. He's just should be retired, I think. So there's some other motions before, and then it takes maybe 10 minutes. So they call, the lawyers go up there. Monique Yingling, David Miscavige's personal lawyer, was there. Warren McShane, president of the Religious Technology Center, was there. And the lawyers basically go up, and there's maybe 10 minutes, and the judge has already issued a tentative ruling in favor of the church, saying that Valery has to go to arbitration. So once I saw the tentatives almost always become final. I thought, well, that's it for this day. So they go up there and they make some arguments. Church attorneys say some things. Valery's attorneys say some things. And the judge just says, he's going to make his ruling final. So Valery has to go to arbitration. And he says, check back with me in about a year.
Jesus Christ.
And it is like throwing Valery under the bus. He doesn't want to handle a First Amendment issue. He's 70 years old. He's only been a judge 6 years. Most people become judges in their early 40s. And he just wants to punt.
Wow.
And Ron, the system, he's what's called an IC judge, independently calendared judge. There's about 45 of them in LA Superior Court.
Right.
They get about 35 to 45 cases a month. And they're expected to clear about 35 to 45 cases a month just to keep paper flowing.
Yeah.
So from my 30 years of corporate, the guy's a paper pusher.
Wow.
Right? He's going to push through motions. He's going to apply the law. And in this case, this was an easy one for him to dispose of because of the contract. And he didn't want the controversy. He's just going to move it. So if he can punt it, I mean, for all we know, he could be retired in a year. And it's not his problem, right?
Yeah.
So he's sort of arrogant and glib, to use a Scientology term. He's very glib about it. And that was it. And then the Scientology attorneys, Monique, Warren McShane, which, by the way, I got to say on Warren, I saw him down in Texas, I guess it was 7 years ago, something like that, right?
Yeah.
He's aged hard, Ron.
Warren McShane you're talking about.
Yeah. He's aged. He looks stressed.
I'm going to tell you something. When you're under that much suppression, and believe me, that guy has the weight of everything on his shoulders. He can't do anything right. In other words, if he does this, he's wrong. If he does the opposite way, he's wrong. There's no right way. So he's continually, I'm sure, getting berated for making wrong decisions. And you live your life that way every day, How the hell do you think you're going to look? Like Clark Gable,
Well, I mean, the most dangerous place to be in the Sea Org is out or near the top, out or near the power, right?
You're in the shadow of Buddha. You're going to get the shit kicked out of you on a regular basis.
Yeah, and it showed. And so it was 10 minutes. It was very perfunctory.
Wow.
There was no sense of justice. It was a sense of let's move paperwork off my desk.
Unbelievable.
So it was very, very maddening. But again, the lesson to learn from it is nobody should ever sign any contract with Scientology. Because if you get in trouble, they'll go to court with their 6 lawyers or 10 lawyers or 20 or however many lawyers they need, because it's all monopoly money to them.
Yeah.
You give them 100,000 or $1 million, it's all monopoly money to spend on lawyers, right?
Yeah, exactly right. They get hot and cold running lawyers. They have nothing else to spend their money on. I mean, this shit they have about handing out a couple pamphlets at the Super Bowl. And by the way, we're talking today's Super Bowl, and here I am doing an interview. Well, let me tell you something. I consider this more important than anything in my life. But they're going to have people handing out a couple flyers, and based on that, then the IS is going to raise money so they can do more of that.
Yeah, and that's interesting, Ron. It's so that's the one point I go back to reemphasize. Scientology puts out the glossy magazines. They have the ideal orgs in the building, but that's all a distraction. The reality is courts and lawyers.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing. In fact, I'm going to go back into court in April, and for the Rizza Islam criminal case.
Mm-hmm.
It's a criminal case, which is quite different than the civil case Valery's in. And then I'm following a case of GPB Capital, Scientologist David Gentili, New York. It's a $1.8 billion private equity fund where several lawsuits have said he's running a Ponzi scheme. So if you are a longtime Scientology watcher, there's a lot of court things that go on that the public never sees.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that go on behind locked doors in rooms where people are signing contracts, and there might be a man with a gun in the room.
Yeah.
Right, a security guard. And I remember, Ron, I was at a trial, one of the days in the preliminary criminal trial for Rizza Islam, and trial was over, right?
Yeah.
So I'm walking out of the criminal courts building, and in walks in Ken Moxon, a church attorney, with a Sea Org member. And Ken looks kind of pissed off. There's some kind of thing that happened with the Sea Org member. I go, Ken Moxon in the criminal court building. It's like, you never know who you'll run into, right?
Wow.
So who knew what that particular event was about?
Yeah.
But the fact that Scientology has a legal department and it has ongoing court cases, civil cases, sometimes they go into criminal. I mean, that's the reality of this organization. It has a lot of lawyers because it needs a lot of lawyers because it does a lot of stuff that is actionable in court. So that's why the church acts to protect itself, and it doesn't want to be accountable or responsible. One more thing, Ron, the benefit of arbitration for the church is it's private. It's not a public open court where you can sit and watch and listen.
That I know.
They don't want all their dirty air. They want to put it in a locked room where nobody can watch it and no one gets to see it.
Well, I'll tell you, I think we've pretty much covered what we wanted to cover today. And I guess if you come right down to it, the best thing you can do is not go near the Church of Scientology. But don't ever sign anything. And how can you not do that? You can't do that and become a member or even get services. So my advice is don't go near them.
Yeah.
Learn from my mistakes and other people like me who have, of course, you say it was a mistake, but be honest with you, Jeffrey, if Scientology technology produced all the things they said it produced and it would help every man, woman, and child on this planet, I would still be there.
Yeah.
That's the lie, but that lie is the thing that honest and decent people want to believe because they want to help their fellow man.
Sure.
And this is the trap. This is how they get you in. So based on that, you're willing to do almost anything if you can pull off this ultimate coup, which would be to help everybody and everything on this planet be better. The answer is don't go near them. And if you're a Scientologist, walk away today. Just say, fuck it. Look at yourself in a mirror and say, you know what? I made a mistake. I was wrong. I was conned. Let me go forward from here. That's my bottom line advice to everybody who's watching this.
Yeah, agreed. And you know what, Ron? When you look at Scientology's bridge to total freedom, if you see it through my eyes, I think the right way to look at it or lens it is behind that bridge, just, a centimeter underneath the bridge of total freedom are a bunch of bad faith contracts.
Yep.
Heartbreak, sorrow, misery.
Losing your family.
And it ends in death or suicide.
Yeah.
So enter at your own peril if you're going to go in. I wouldn't recommend it at all.
Well,
it's a very bad place to be.
I've done it. I've walked that way. I lost my family except for my son Ronnie and my granddaughter Jenna. I mean, this is hey, that's why I'm doing this. You know, today's Super Bowl. Fine.
And that's why we continue to expose the Church of Scientology.
Yes,
and the bottom line is, believe whatever you want. There's no problems with the belief. It's the conduct of the organization.
That's exactly right. And if I can just continue that thought I had, today is Super Bowl day. You know, in the past, I'd be home getting stuff ready and getting the food and the drinks out and everything. Listen, this to me is more important than anything, what I'm doing and what you're doing. And if anybody out there doubts this, look at the statistics. Look at how many people have been robbed of friendship and family and money and maybe their home and their kids' college education. Don't believe me. Investigate it for yourself. We're not doing this for something better to do, excuse me. We're not doing it because we have nothing else to do. We're doing it because we feel we have an obligation. That's how I feel, and I'm sure you feel the same way. In my case, I gave up 42 years of my life. Good.
Yeah.
Well, let me help you not give up 42 years of your life.
Yeah, and as far as Valery Haney goes, Valery's very strong.
Yeah. She'll come out on top. This isn't the end of this
persevere.
fucking story.
And Leah Remini issued one hell of a statement that we're going to keep fighting. There's no back down, Ron. No. Valery is going to keep going.
Oh, yeah. Valery's...
The Church of Scientology knows that.
She'll win. She'll win. But meanwhile, it's going to be a real pain in the ass that she's going to have to go through to get to that point. Hey, listen, those of you out there, do me a favor. Could you share this program, please, so we can get a lot more viewers? We want to get a lot of people enlightened on the Church of Scientology so they don't get stung like we did. And if you'd care to help out, subscribe to the program, which would be great. And if you care, you can become a patron. Just go to my website, therealronmiscavige.com. Anyway, Jeffrey, I'm really glad you come on this morning. You've enlightened a lot of people with your expertise and experience. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
No, thanks for having me on, Ron. Keep doing what you're doing because it's important. You have a voice, and I'm glad you do this every week.
I appreciate that, and I'm getting a high sign from my producer here. Yes.
Yes, we have some super chats. They've been rolling in. First one from Mary R. Sending support.
Thank you very much, Mary R.
Next super chat from Moab Jam Audio. I ordered your book last week. I wanted it in English, so I have to wait a few weeks. Looking forward to read it. All the best. Greetings from Switzerland.
Oh, fabulous. I love Switzerland. I tell you, this I've been to Lausanne and I've been to Zurich, and I was even in one of those cable cars where you go to the top of the mountain, and we had fondue up there, which was out of this world. Just beautiful. Thank you very much, my friend.
One more super chat, unless someone gets in the last 5 seconds here. Whistle while you work. With the cult-like mentality in government, is there any hope of reversing Scientology's tax-exempt status? Do you see parallels to Trumpism?
Well, I don't see parallels to Trumpism, but is there any hope of reversing Scientology's religious exemption? Yes. As long as you keep trying, you haven't failed. You just got to keep going and keep exposing them. And somewhere along the way, some politician with a set of balls might just say, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. And I pray and hope for that day to come like today, which would be fabulous if it did. Michael, any more?
Nope. So far, that's it.
That was my producer, Michael. And Michael, thank you very much for coming to work on Super Bowl Sunday. I really appreciate that. And this guy worked up until 8 o'clock this morning, and he's given up his sleep time to come here and produce this program for me. So,
and it's totally worth it to listen to Ron, to listen to this show. And I know I'll be sleeping. I'll be missing the Super Bowl, but it's, as Ron says, it's totally worth it. And I totally feel it's worth it.
Thank you very much, Michael. So to all of you out there, and Jeffrey, my dear friend, I say have a great day. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and God bless all of you. I'll see you on the next program. Bye-bye now.